We go back to the beginning, back to the Transformers home planet, Cybertron, and we also go back to a fully animated feature. Let's talk about Transformers 1. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for Transformers 1. This is the latest in obviously a long, long line of Transformers films. It is an animated feature, which I did not realize. Look, I don't watch trailers. I think they spoil way too much of the movie. So I actually went into this not even knowing it was a fully animated movie. And look, I think it is all for the better. This is easily one of the best films, I think, in the Transformers franchise. But look, we'll talk about the reasons why and explain a little bit about this movie in just a second. First, though, let me welcome you back to Dan Reviews It. If you are one of my subscribers already, thank you so much. Always love having you return to the channel. But if you're not, please consider subscribing. Click that notification bell as well so you get all my new video drops. But just like this video and comment. That helps the channel tremendously as well, of course. So, all right. So, like I said, this goes back to basics here. We are back on Cybertron. This is a prequel of sorts, really. This is the origins of the relationship between Optimus Prime and Megatron. It talks about how Megatron became the main antagonist in the Transformers franchise. And here we have Chris Hemsworth as Optimus Prime, also known in the earlier era as Orion Pax. He is a miner, and obviously, anybody that follows the Transformers, we know what kind of happens to him. He leads the Autobots. Brian Tyree Henry voices Megatron, who was previously known as D16. We have Scarlett Johansson, Keegan-Michael Key, Steve Buscemi, Lawrence Fishburne, John Hamm, all along for the ride as well. So a really big list of character names here. And look, after the Michael Bay movies and sort of the offshoots of those, I think people were a little bit tired of the Transformers. And was it last year or the year before we had a movie, another movie with the Transformers that it looked like the end credit scene was going to tie in G.I. Joe at some point. I still haven't received word whether we're, going to do that Transformers G.I. Joe mashup, but there was just another new Transformers movies like a year or two ago. And so, have we gotten too much Transformers? Obviously, the box office for this movie might indicate that is so, because the reviews for this are off the chart. It's got an 89% with critics, 98% with audiences on Rotten Tomatoes. So obviously the people that are seeing this are loving it. But this was, kind of a bit of a bomb at the box office because not a lot of people ended up seeing it. And I think the same thing happened with the other best movie in the Transformers franchise, which is Bumblebee. That was sort of a standalone, and again, a little bit of a prequel because it took place in the 80s. And so, people, I think, were kind of transformed out from the Michael Bay movies, and they kept getting worse and worse. Transformers 5, I think it is, the last, Michael Bay one with Mark Wahlberg. I don't know if Michael Bay directed it, but, that sort of era with Mark Wahlberg is, for my money, one of the worst films of the decade. I think it was my number 2 worst movie of the decade or something when I did my my bottom 10 of the 2010s. So, look, I get it. People are tired of this franchise. However, there are still a lot of fans of the Transformers that I think want to see something a little bit more unique than the crap that Michael Bay was spewing out. I think my highest grade on that Michael Bay run between Shia LaBeouf and the Mark Wahlberg movies was like a C or a C+. Whereas Bumblebee is like a B+, and this one is kind of right in that range. The animation is sleek, it's gorgeous. And look, full disclosure, I don't care one way or the other about the Transformers. I am an 80s kid. I grew up in the 80s, but in terms of like action cartoons, that isn't where I sort of gravitated to. I was like, the Smurfs, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Muppet Babies, Garfield and Friends, all that kind of stuff. The only like action cartoon that I watched was He-Man. But I had 2 brothers, and they would watch stuff like this. So this was always on, and Transformers has always been a part of my sort of collective mind, for the last 35 plus years, 40 years, whatever. So while I can't say I'm like a fan, it's certainly been a part of my life for a long time. We had the toys, that transformed into the trucks and all that stuff. And it was fun to play with, even though I didn't watch the show. But so I have like no investment really in these characters or this property, but it's been interesting watching all of the horrible Michael Bay movies, and then we had, the live action one a couple of years ago. We had Bumblebee, we have this, that are all to, in my mind, a higher level. Now, I will say there are a little too many, like, it's got funny moments, but I think they leaned a little too heavily into, like, the references. Like, Keegan Michael Key at some point references Aaron from the old Key and Peele sketch Substitute Teacher. They talk about the GoBots at one point. They say more than meets the eye a couple of times. They keep talking about the Matrix because that's sort of like a plot point, but Lawrence Fishburne is like in the cast. So there's a lot of like references that I was just like, oh, okay, like rolling my eyes a little bit, like, all right, you guys are trying maybe too hard with that portion, but the characters are well defined. They're cool, and even though I don't necessarily know all the ins and the outs of each character, I know enough about the series to identify, okay, like this is the start of this guy. Oh, okay, I know who this is going to turn into and stuff. And that honestly made me a little bit more invested in these characters than maybe I would have been. Now, I will say, if this is the first Transformers thing you've ever seen, I don't think it will quite mean as much to you. Seeing Megatron sort of turn and all of that, and there's a very like Star Wars inspired, conclusion, we can say. So, I'm sure that was done on purpose, and obviously we've done a lot of Star Wars parodies over the years. But this guy who directed it, Josh Cooley, he also directed Toy Story 4, which, much maybe like Transformers 1, is an unnecessary film, but it actually, turned out to be pretty good. Like, Toy Story 3 ended so perfectly. I was like, why are they making another one? And now they're about to make Toy Story 5. But it's fine because Toy Story 4 ended up being a really great movie. And this was the director of that. And I think he won an Oscar for that because I think it won Best Animated Feature. So this could be directed by Oscar winner Josh Cooley. But look, I think there's a lot of good elements to like here. I'm not sure if it's quite as good as Bumblebee as a film, but the arc of these characters and some of the battle sequences, it's all done very, very well. So for my own personal enjoyment, it's probably more of like a B. But look, this is, I think, the movie that Transformers fans have been waiting for a long, long time. And so for that, I'm going to bump it up to a B plus. That might not be my personal grade for my own personal enjoyment, but since I have no attachment to this series, no, I think people that are really into the Transformers, this is the movie that they've been waiting for. So I will leave it there with a B plus. All right, thank you so much for watching Dan Reviews It, and we'll see you next time. Bye.